Good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. It's exactly 2 minutes gone past the hour of 9 o'clock in the studios of Classic. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. For today, the 19th day of the month of October. It's indeed another great day. We say good morning again to our listeners on Classic and Channel 20 if you are in cable. Those of you chiming in via the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd or via our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. My name is Joseph Cadore, and we're getting ready for To The Point. My guest this morning represented two executive members of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Lennox Andrews and Maria Pascal. My dear lady and sir, good morning again and welcome to the program.
Good morning and thank you.
Good morning indeed, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you for being here as well. It would be remiss of me, let's just set do a little bit of housekeeping matters. How have you guys been keeping? Mr. Andrews, I was saying to you, it has been a while. I have not seen you, and you did say to me you're not going to blame COVID. It's going to blame you. Where have you been? What have you been up to?
But I have been recently retired, admittedly so, and I have been occupying myself mainly doing work in my backyard, absorbed in agricultural production for domestic consumption, as well as getting involved in certain community activities, helping to get certain work done within the communities, and also doing some of the behind-the-scene work for the party, preparation of important documents and so for the party. So I have been busy, put it that way. I'm looking after myself and looking after the community in a very broad sense.
Well,
no, I have not been in the public, openly, physically in the public domain for a while.
Right.
So. The last time I think I appeared on television was when there was that budget debate last year.
It has been a while.
But yeah, so it has been a while. But I think the time is right now for me to be more open and more direct and find more close means of communicating and speaking directly to the population. Let them know that I am well, I am happy.
Well, you are indeed alive and well. From the looks of things, I can see it's glowing on you. You are alive and well. No arguments over that. Lady Pascal, right. Lady Pascal.
Hi, my dear.
How have you survived COVID?
I survived it because of my upbringing and my career. I'm a nurse and midwife by profession.
So you had no problems with protocols?
I had no problem with that, and you have to obey orders. Once you obey the doctor's orders, everything will be fine.
Everything
so I survived it, and as Lennox said, agriculture, the COVID is there, but you have your backyard. So you're out there doing what you have to do with the plants and the flowers and the agriculture things and so on. So I survived it. But funny enough, Joseph, I enjoyed, especially, I know some may be mad, but I had enjoyed the weekend lockdown because it gave me time to do my agriculture stuff that I wanted to do as a business owner. You're running your business 7 days a week, but that gave me time. So I'm not fussing over COVID.
We're not fussing over COVID. We are here and we've survived thus far, and we are going to continue. But today we're here to discuss matters pertaining to the National Democratic Congress. And if I were to ask either one of you, and I'll probably go ladies first, because there are many persons who have argued, for whatever reasons, and given that the NDC has lost, they've come out with two consecutive 15-0 defeat at the poll, clean sweep at the poll, defeats at the poll. They've asked whether or not the National Democratic Congress has any relevance within the current construct of a political framework. Mr. Lennox Andrews, as a trained economist, what would your response to that be? Does NDC have any relevance within the current construct, politics, national development, growth?
Well, obviously, and very much indeed so. And one did not go back and dwell too much on history, because the present, history is already consumed in the present. Yeah? What is important is that you look at where you are, what you have, and what you have to do going forward. Yeah? No, the party is a relevant party in the lives of our people in this country. It has a strong base of at least 20,000 persons. Yeah? And the objective situation of the country today reveals that there is need for more political activities, and there is need for change. And there is need for new ideas and new vibes, a new rhythm, a new enthusiasm to put our country back on the road of work and on the road of production. Yeah? And therefore, here is where I think the National Democratic Congress already has a role to play. People are now looking towards the Congress as that option that can lead that change and that can create that new energy and vigor and motivation and drive and enthusiasm and get our population ready for the process of work to rebuild our homeland with dignity and with pride, so we can all feel proud that we are part of something that is good, something that says that we are all, as a nation and as a people, working for a common good. Good? Now, our country today is being faced with the problem of governance. We have a serious problem of governance. We are not governing properly. There is not much regard and not much respect for the people of this country. Decisions are being taken without bearing in mind what impact it will have on the broad population. Would it help? Would the people feel good about that? Would the people benefit from such decisions? Yeah? So it comes with when you are, or you have become too accustomed to a particular behavior. Yeah? You tend to think that you are a master of your own, that you can now do what you want and the people will listen to you. Yeah? But we are at the point now where the people are saying that we need something different, we need something new, we need something more meaningful, we need something more helpful, and we want to have with us a sense of national pride and a sense of national freedom.
So
our people are now looking for, we are looking for some sense of individual freedom that can allow us to utilize our skills and our talent and our ability and contribute in a meaningful way to the social and economic transformation of our homeland and of our people.
And I know
what we want to do in these times.
And I know certainly from your,
I think the NDC has to play.
I know for sure from your background as a trained economist that you're well skilled in the art and you would be able to articulate that quite nicely. But putting things as they are in the current construct, Nurse Pascal, and I love you to call you Nurse Pascal, and because I know you are comfortable with that as well. And I'm referring to you as Nurse Pascal for a specific reason. COVID has thrown us into a new dimension, one that has had and continues to literally cripple or highlight a number of challenges within our health sector. And certainly, as an executive member of the Congress, it must certainly resonate with you that the challenges you're hearing it. What in your mind are some of the greater concerns as it relates to the current state of our health sector, and how do we change it? Where do we go from here?
Well, I could speak about that very well because I came back to Grenada to start my business, but then I decided to give 5 years of my service to the Ministry of Health. So I could talk about what I saw and what could be done. I first went in there 2006, 2007. I saw it's a system that is, I will have to say, antiquated. there is things that could be done to make life much easier for both the healthcare providers and the patient. Then I went back again 2011. So I saw when this present administration was in government and when the NDC was in government, and I worked on the both situation. The thing about it is that from working abroad, because I work both in London and in New York, and coming to Grenada, improving the Grenada healthcare system is so easier than people think, and it's less costly. The first thing is education. You have to educate the people. Because so in that way now, they wouldn't go into the emergency room or the hospital to overwhelm the hospital. And you have to anticipate what could happen. I see COVID was coming. And I don't think the powers that be did any preparation for what we know what would have happened. And that's where the chaos started. They knew the COVID was coming, but they did not prepare. And they knew what they had to do to prepare for the disaster that was going on.
Let me make sure that we put that assertion in context. When you say they knew COVID was coming, put that in perspective for me.
We were told that people was going to die. That was a statement that was made from the ministry
So okay. So you're saying in the context of our current the wave that we have in now.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Right. Yes, we knew that what was going to happen, because to make that statement, you had an idea of what was going to happen with COVID, but preparation wasn't made to deal with the crowd or the situation that was going to happen. As a healthcare provider, Grenada has no money as a developed world. So the first important thing was to do, I know there was the sanitizing and the protocol and all those things like that, but there are other things that they could have done or educate the people in order to reduce the amount of patients that going down to the unit to overwhelm the hospital. That's one of the things that I noticed. There's education. I know it's a controversial issue, but I know it works. That you have to build up your immune system. That is very important. So that will reduce on what will happen in the hospital. Build your immune system. We have the herbs. There's an issue that we don't know how much herbs to use. That is another thing. And I said to people that when you go in the shop and buy sugar, you don't put a pound of sugar in a little cup of water. You use your judgment. And if they do a survey, some people it did not work for some, but it worked for a lot.
So I'm getting the sense that you're saying that one of the ways we could have dealt with the COVID, you're saying that government was not proactive enough, given that because they intimate that it was coming, that more should have been done in terms of preparing the masses for the eventuality of what since transpired?
Exactly, because I know, and I've been a nurse when Ebola was there, so I know little preparation was done. I worked as a nurse when Ebola was around, and if you notice, the former leader of the Congress did ask the government to prepare a building, and I had suggested that as well. You prepare a building, and everything now is portable. So you have the ventilators, just in case, because as I said, there are certain things that you could do before that may not work for a patient with COVID. So you prepare for the worst. You prepare a facility and you have it there. There's a portable ventilator, there's a portable oxygen machine. Then you try to recruit nurses. You could recruit nurses from overseas and you have that prepared. If nothing happened, that building could be used for something else, but you know that facility is there.
But let me ask you, and I understand the argument you're making, and I'm going to get back to Mr. Len Andrews in a while because of who he's a man that can crunch the numbers. But are you making this assertion based on the fact that you're saying that was not done, efforts was not made by the ruling administration, or is it that attempts were made and it failed?
No, as I am not in the health field now, I am not working as a nurse now, so I don't know if attempts were made and it failed. And it's bad, it's hard to say. I mean, it's not good to repeat things from from what you hear, because you have to be there to know exactly what is going on.
Right.
But as far as I understood, the ventilators and the beds and everything was a little bit late. Everything was late. And that, I think that created the chaos and the panic in the country.
Okay. Mr. Andrews. So you.
Yeah. So,
I want you to put it in context for me, because we're hearing about this being late, that being late. What do you think us asking for help from our neighbors certainly would have been a slow incoming process, given that each and every one of us was literally going through the same situation at the same time? And outside of the healthcare challenges, even when it comes to economic issues, it's a difficult time to be asking for help anywhere. Is there anything that government could have done or should have done in order to, under the current situation, at least be able to put some life a little? There was the stimulus packages. Anything else you determined that should have taken place that at least would have offered some energy, life into what is a dying situation economically under COVID?
Well, I think there should have been a two-pronged approach to dealing with the COVID problem. Bearing in mind that the COVID is an external shock. It comes from outside. We in Grenada do not have it. And for it to be with us, something or somebody has to bring it in. Good? So you should take a two-pronged approach to it. The first approach you should take is to respond to that external shock. What do you have to do to prevent that disease from coming into the country? Good? And of course, there's a lot can be done. How do you protect your borders, including the quarantine? Good? And secondly, you have to put a plan in place to protect the citizens just in case it was to enter by whatever means. Yeah? Now, I think the government approach was more reactive rather than proactive. There was not a plan in place that says that over the next 3 months or over the next 2 months, we're going to set targets to reduce the likelihood of it coming in, targets to reduce the number of persons that are having it. Good? And if we achieve that target, it becomes possible for us now to free ourselves from that disease and get our economy back in full operation. Now, my view is this, is that to the extent that COVID is externally driven, it is externally driven. We do not have it in Grenada. It doesn't originate from within us. The focus should have been on protecting our borders, ensuring that persons who are coming in or things coming in, whether through our ports, our airport, or our major points of entry, right? Put the surveillance system and put the structure in place, spend the money in that regard, so as to protect the nation from that dreaded disease. And once you can do that, then you can return to your domestic economic activity at ease.
But Mr. Andrews, but if you ask me, we had our first case of COVID case March of 2019, and I mean up until August of this year, we were doing pretty good. So isn't it fair to say that the government at some point they got the equation right? Isn't it fair to say, both on an economic scale and on a health perspective, they got it right?
No, the health measures that were put in place, they were good because they would have, if I may say, halted the spread of the disease for a while. But having gotten there and having understood better the disease and having listened to what the science says about the disease, then you should have put further measures in place to protect persons, to protect the nation, trade begins to take place.
What are some of those measures that you're hinting to before we go to the break?
If the science says, and that's a fundamental problem for me. If the science says that the disease can live with you for a certain time period without showing up itself, then in your quarantine measures, that must be taken into consideration. Right? And my thinking is this: the outbreak that we had is simply because we removed the quarantine days from 7 to 2. That's the problem.
Okay.
Had we kept those 7 days quarantine period, do the test at the end of those 7 days, ensure that the persons who are now free to move around in the country are free from the disease, there could not have been that outbreak. I give the example of last year Carnival. Last year we had Carnival-like activities, but at that time we were having a longer period of quarantine. People were staying inside for 2 weeks, and they were getting their tests done. And therefore, when these people were released into the community, they were freed from this disease. So we didn't have that outbreak last year. It came this year because of that simple scientific recognition that was not adhered to. Yeah.
Well, we are going to try to recognize the science by keeping my eyes on the clock. It's 25 past the hour. We'll take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll acknowledge where we are and see how we can determine from here where to from here in terms of how do we get out from this current quagmire that we're in. It's to the point. 25 minutes gone past the hour. My guests, executive members of the National Democratic Congress, Maria Pascal and Lennox Andrews. Quick commercial break. We'll be right back right here on Classic.
Let's get tough on greed and larceny. It will destroy our economy. Larceny threatens our food security. Can hurt us locally, hurt us globally. To all the buyers, ask for license from all produce sellers. To all people, 300 for police for them thieving fellas. To all farmers, please don't steal produce from your brother. Then you're selling to traffickers, hotels and street vendors. Nah, man. Let's do all we can to stop greedy and larceny. New vigilance, new laws, and a tough judiciary. Stop Grenada's organized business crime. It's time.
To report greedy and larceny, call 300.
Thank you. Welcome back to the program. To the point for today, the 19th day of October. We're going to go straight to the telephone lines. Classic, good morning. You're alive. Classic, good morning.
Good morning.
You're alive? Yes, sir, you're alive. I think we've lost that caller. Certainly, we're going to give you the opportunity so that you can pose your questions to the executive members of the National Democratic Congress. My dear sir, my dear lady, having acknowledged what the pitfalls were, and I'm happy because you would agree that in order for us to chart the course forward, we must acknowledge where we've gone wrong. So we've highlighted those. Looking ahead, and I'll start with healthcare, Nurse Pascal, what should be the plan and the focus going forward?
What we see, and I will agree with everything what Lennox says. One of the things that really caused the virus to spread is because we broke that quarantine protocol that held us together. It was the 7 days, the 7 days quarantine, and as I say, keeping your distance and the mask. Soon as they reduce on the quarantine days, that when most of the things started, like you say, in August. Especially when the scientist tells you that even though people are vaccinated, they still carry the virus. it may not affect them as the people that's unvaccinated, but they still have the virus there. So you keep them there for the 7 days, make sure that they're negative, and that would have eased the problem, because I experienced where a young lady came from the States, a friend of my daughter. She was vaccinated and she was positive, and she remained there for 14 days. So if we had followed that quarantine protocol, vaccinated or unvaccinated, everybody, don't discriminate at all, then we would not have had that serious outbreak.
Okay, just hold the line for me. We have a caller that is alive. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Good morning to you, my brother.
Yes, good morning. Go ahead, please. You're live.
Good morning to my sister and brother. My dear sister and brother, I wanted to ask Cadore a question. He had a kind of disease reading in Grenada, and is not the NDC. Yes, the NDC, the opposition of los Carvalho, the opposition that sell the thing we had on the Wavdon the other granates, or what they call it, the thing, and I put thing down there. We had a place in Grenada to think the people and them, but don't come and say the government know this and the government know that. The government doing better than the opposition and them, and the opposition and them that really know worse than the opposition before in Gary days. Bless you. Have a blessed morning. I love all you.
Thank you. All the best to you. So we're getting back to the initial question at hand. We acknowledging where we are. There must be a plan going forward. There is a question. You've hinted that the government dropped the ball when it came to the quarantine measures. What in your mind is needed to address the current challenges that exist within our healthcare system? What would NDC, if given the chance to rule the country, what would the NDC implement? But before you answer that question for me, there's a caller that is live on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, Joe, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I want to make an observation, and I don't know if anybody else have an observation. Now, for the 2020, we had one COVID death, and we didn't have much any COVID spread. But as soon as the Prime Minister went out for his medical and come back, everything turned upside down. I wish somebody could explain that to me, please. Thanks.
Yes, my dear sir. Yes, so we're going back to moving ahead.
Right. So where we are now with this virus, I think that there is sufficient information, scientific information, to understand how this virus operates and what mitigating measures can be put in place to avoid its spread. Yeah? I think we understand that. And certainly, we must start with the quarantine measures. Okay? We must start, because the virus could stay within you for 5 days without presenting itself. That's what the science says. So we must start with those quarantine measures and extend the quarantine days from the 2 to at least 5. That has to be a fundamental decision to be implemented going forward to prevent the spread of the disease.
So we say lengthening, we addressing the quarantine period. Okay.
Yes. So apart from all the measures that you have already taken to protect the borders, yeah, which are good and which have worked, good. What is failing us now, in my humble opinion, is that quarantine days. Because irrespective of whatever protocols you put inside the country, just in case, you could do all these protocols, you know. But if you see the thing about the virus.
But let me ask you, let me ask you, we have already gotten community spread, so we have a crisis already on our hand. We already have community spread. So the question of keeping out the virus, is long gone. It is here.
Yes. So keep on the virus first of all, right?
But we are
dealing with the community spread now.
Right. So I'm asking, based on the fact that we are acknowledging we have community spread, let's assume for the purpose of the conversation, you've hinted the government dropped the ball. We have community spread. The question is, where to from here? How do we get our healthcare system? How do we get our economy? What are the recommendations and suggestions that would come from the NDC in terms of forward motion?
No, well, the ideas I'm going to express, I have not taken them to the NDC as yet, so I would not say from the NDC. Good? These are my individual ideas. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. So we need to vaccinate the population. Sorry, not vaccinate. We need to test the population. Test the population to see who have and who doesn't have. Those who are affected and who are not affected. Those who are affected, we have to separate them. So we should have been building separate facilities to cater for and to care for persons who are affected. Good? We monitor them over a certain time period. And when they are no longer infected with the disease, we can now bring them back into the population. Good? In the meantime, we maintain all the protocols that have been established. We maintain them. Good? And we cannot therefore allow for economic activity to take place, because it will mean that those who are working are those who most likely are not the ones who are affected by the disease. And then what you will do is that you do your test, you do your separation, you call on the nation to behave in a particular way, you set targets for the population. You say that by a certain time after 2-3 months, we want to ensure that whatever means 90% of the population is free of that disease. So you have what is called the herd immunity. Good? If you have that by a certain date, then it becomes easier for you to relax some of the protocol measures. It's possible you may want to do that, yeah? But fundamentally, you should be setting targets over a certain time period. Speak to the nation, let them know what you are doing, and get them ready so that they know what they are working towards, and they would comply. They would comply because they are working towards a plan. No, we have not seen that. All I'm seeing is that a reaction to our outburst, a reaction to an outburst. Good? But what I'm saying is that if you know that there is a likelihood of an outburst, you have to put structures and measures in place to deal with it. And that is not what is happening.
Putting structures in place to deal with the outbreak. We've had the outbreak. Most regions the outbreaks comes in waves. Nurse Pascal, we were on our first wave. Looking ahead, and I'm hoping Mr. Andrews talks about having a strategic plan. Looking ahead, how do we prevent a second wave? Is it possible?
Well, I am not a scientist, and we know that ever so often you'll hear different variants. So we really don't know what caused the variants. People just coming up with all kind of assumption. So from where I'm sitting, it's really hard to say whether we could prevent the second wave or not.
No, I'm saying prevent in the context of locally, in terms of management, what happens locally. Can we, if not prevent, at least what can we do to potentially reduce? What can we do going forward to potentially reduce on the potential impact of a second wave?
Well, we have to be creative. First of all, I know right now it's hard and it's not economical for us to close the border because Grenada put so much emphasis on tourism. So it might be difficult, but we have to be creative. I don't know if it's a second wave because we don't know if the first wave is over. But then we have to be creative in order to prevent the community spread. And I think if we prevent the community spread, and we definitely know by the testing and so on that the numbers is reducing, then at least we know we have it under control. One of the things that I I looked at and I'm saying there's a lot of empty buildings, like schools, that's there. One person in a family is tested positive. They said to them, go home and isolate yourself. No, they have, I don't know. As I said, I'm not in the health field, whether they will test all the family members. But then somebody, knowing Grenadians, we like to be outside. We like to be outside. So it's no way that you will tell a Grenadian to go home and isolate and expect that Grenadian to stay there. We have the schools. We could just put things in place in the school. You set up the school so that one person could be there, as you say, as Lennox say, minimum 5 days, and then you test the person, and then you go home. So you make sure now that he is negative, and he goes back home to a negative family. And and this is the way I feel that we should do to keep on reducing on the COVID that's in Grenada.
Question to you, and it's I'm hoping to get a response from both of you, and it speaks to healthcare. There are those that have argued that what we see now is that COVID has exposed the cracks and the dents within our healthcare system. Some have called for a total revamping of the healthcare system, which will require greater taxation for the purpose of healthcare, or people even having to pay for that. Is that something an NDC administration would be willing to support as part of the way out to dealing with this healthcare crisis?
I always say that healthcare, just as education, is a non-tangible profit. So there is nothing, and I always hear people saying, oh, healthcare is expensive. Education is expensive too. Look at the budget of that is given to the Ministry of Education. That same amount of money supposed to be given to the Ministry of Health. Because if you don't have an adequate healthcare system, people will be off work, people won't be working, and so on. So we have to invest. We have to. I'll lose the train of thought. Yeah. What was the question again? Sorry.
So I was asking you, the argument is that healthcare is expensive. Yes, it is. It is expensive. Some have argued that we need to be a more robust, taxable approach that allows for government to be able to put more into it. Either you tax the people more, or they pay for healthcare that allows for the system to take care of itself. In Grenada, almost everything is free. Would an NDC administration support a move to let people pay more taxes, so that it can go directly towards healthcare?
And as one of the initial questions that you asked is whether the COVID exposed the cracks in the healthcare system. From ever since before COVID, people have been complaining about the inadequacy of the healthcare. So COVID really hasn't exposed it any more than the critical thing that it is. It from before COVID, you'll hear people complain there's shortage of nurses, and there's shortage of bed, there's shortage of medicine, and so on. So COVID really, except there's a pandemic, so there is more need. There is more need for medicine and so on. As I said already, health, just as education, is non-tangible profit. So even if the government had to add an extra tax on the people just for health, because the people knowing that tax is increased for health care. So you will walk into the hospital, you don't have to worry if you meet in an accident that you have to have a $400 or $500 for the ambulance or for medicine. You know that will be taken care of. It's just as insurance. The taxes, it will be just as insurance, that you put an insurance there, and you know if you have any crisis, the money is already paid out. So my thing is, I prefer to be taxed for healthcare.
As the economist, Mr. Andrews, do you agree?
Yes, I agree, and let's put it in the economics jargon. Government is a public good, and government is here to provide public goods and services. Yeah? And they do so through the collection of taxes. Now, what are these public goods and services? They could be roads, they could be hospitals, they could be schools, right? These are services that the population on a whole don't pay for directly, right? but they have with them what they call, or what the economists refer to as positive externalities. Positive externalities, which means that they bring benefit to the population as a whole, right? Even though individually we do not have to pay for them. And health services are one of those public goods that government must provide.
So the NDC would have no problem in adding taxations upon the heavy load already?
I will certainly advise the NDC in that regard.
We seem to have lost connections to a guest in just a bit. It is in 15 minutes on to the hour in the morning time. We take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back right here on Classic to the Point in the morning time. But while we wait, that again, reminding you that that post-cabinet briefing comes up at the top of the hour on television, and in the session, of course, will be conducted by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. We'll just take a quick break on television and radio, and we'll be right back.
Cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Looking for that injection of vibes and energy, of course? Well, I've got just that. Hi, my name is Gary, Mr. Smooth, and I'm inviting you to join me on the Hot Morning Show on Hot 98.5, 98.7 FM. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 in the morning. I've got a healthy dose of your favorite and most infectious hits sampled with information, news, laughter, and all the other ingredients that go into making the hottest morning show on the radio, The Morning Heat. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit us up on WhatsApp, 435-7517. We've got topics, we've got discussions, calls, voice notes, and so much more. But I can't tell you everything. You gotta tune in. The Hot Morning Show on Hot FM 98.5, 98.7 with yours truly, Gary, Mr. Smooth. Kaboom!
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
5 things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Greetings, everyone. I hope this message meets you and yours in the best of health as we join in encouraging all to act responsibly.
COVID-19 presents the most serious
and deadly challenge any of us will experience in our lifetimes.
We must act now.
We need to keep the Caribbean safe.
We can all help to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Please stay at home.
So Caribbean people, please stay home.
Caribbean people, please stay at home.
Please stay home. It's that simple. This too shall pass. But for now, stay home.
Stay in your yard. Stay home, stay safe.
To agree. Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add, I agree with what Lennox said, and I want to add that if you look at the economic costs, somebody with high blood pressure that don't have the education of how to reduce that blood pressure end up being sick. The cost of them being an inpatient is so much more. It's so much more than if you have the health center or the medical station open. And that person will go and monitor the blood pressure. They have an educator. They're telling them, make sure you eat eat the proper food. You make sure you do exercise. That cost is so much less. And so healthcare is very high. Healthcare is very expensive. But if we sit down and think, how can we reduce the expense? I think that we could have a first-class healthcare system.
Is that a strategic plan that the Congress has developed and have sitting and waiting to be ruled out as we get into the next election cycle? Hold that thought there for me. I have a caller that is on the line and has been waiting. Caller, good morning. You're live. Hello, caller. We seem to have lost that one. Yes, so we talk about the expenses that has to be incurred, but certainly I'm not hearing we're hearing allocate more. But what I'm not hearing is of that strategic plan that allows for that economic injection that says, listen, we're going to, if we go back into power, we'll see economic growth of X, Y, and Z, and then allows us to allocate $50 million more to healthcare. That has to be a conversation that must take place. That I'm not hearing.
No, sorry. Go ahead, Miss. Yeah.
Well, Joseph, I'm not the health spokesman for the Congress, and what me and Lennox is talking about is just the ideas as just regular citizens coming out of our head.
Okay.
They're not the economy. I, as a healthcare provider, we just coming up with assumption. We haven't, and so this is not the NDC stand on it. This is just what we think is a good idea to improve the healthcare system.
So I'm assuming what we're hearing here today, certainly we're hoping that could be taken on board by the upper echelon of the party and be integrated into a greater developmental plan.
We hope
certainly. And as an economist, I would expect to be involved in the economic policies and economic programs of the country. Good? And therefore, I would be in a position to indicate clearly with numbers why the government should spend its money in that particular area, and what are the likely benefits from those allocations, from those expenditures. Good?
Okay, we time is always of the essence, but there's always questions out there that's being asked. While yes, people are hearing that the NDC is in fact the next viable option, some are looking at the current state of the party. We know there is a convention coming up, and I know that there are certain things that you cannot discuss, and I understand that thoroughly, clearly. But certainly as members of the party, does the issue, are you concerned in any way as to the future of the party as we go through this transitionary period of leadership that there seems to be a void since Mr. Burke stepped down after the defeat of the polls?
As a business person, I know, as you say, people are looking at the NDC and they're not counting on it as a viable option. That's why we have in convention to hope to bring new faces with new ideas.
Okay.
And as a business person, people have to realize that business fail. A successful businessman will tell you his business failed 5 times. And it becomes successful eventually, so that as you fail, you look back on the mistakes that you made, you look back on the way to improve, and you look back on the way that you do things before. And that way now, you could be successful. So I am begging the people out there that's listening to us. Convention is coming. We have new faces and new ideas. Not only new faces, but new ideas, because the people that come in have new ideas in order to make sure that they're satisfied with the Congress. We have excellent ideas. We have excellent plan. It was implemented 2008 to 2013 with agriculture, health, and education. But just that we didn't get a chance, because with a country in such a state, it had to take any government at least 5 to 10 years to get the country back on track. But we did it. As a healthcare provider, I know we did it in the health department, because there were many people who the Ministry of Health had sent overseas to be specialized in emergency care, in ICU, in pediatric care, and so on. Education, look, we had the free school book program and so on. Agriculture was the top. Look how many projects we had exported. So we asking the people of Grenada, give us a chance. For the damage that was done, you need time to clean out the problem and then to start for it to go. So we know we're capable of handling the country and bringing it back to a better place where it should be.
Mr. Andrews, at the end of the day...
John is my next name, so you can call me Lennox John Andrews. That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Andrews, at the end of the day, a robust economy is what will help drive, I'm not saying that naturally, would allow for enough revenue that you can allocate towards developing a robust healthcare sector.
Yeah.
What are your estimations? Looking at where we've been, what do we need? If I was going to ask you to give me 3 strategic plans, developmental areas of focus that the NDC should focus on that would take this country forward, what would your response be? Yes.
Right. Good. Now, 3 sectors. 1, agriculture and agro-processing. I put them together because they are very closely linked. And I mentioned agriculture and agro-processing because coming out of COVID, there is a strong sense that we need to focus on domestic production for domestic consumption. Yeah? In other words, food security, so that we can fight against any external shock of the nature of COVID. 2, the health sector. Fundamentally, we need to allocate substantial amount of resources to building, strengthening, expanding, and ensuring that the quality of health service that we provide to our population is of the very best. 3, the creative economy. The creative economy. We need to find ways of getting our young people involved in the productive sectors of the economy. Our young people need to have a sense of individual freedom, a sense of economic freedom, in which they can use their natural talent and their ability to provide or produce a good or a service and use it, that good or service for which there is a demand, use it to earn a decent living. Now, the creative economy, I want to speak a little bit about that. Because this today is seen...
Try to encapsulate as best you can, because we're almost out of time.
Yeah. So what we want to do is to provide careers for our young people in areas like photography, music, graphic designs, fashion designs, video, filmmaking, architecture, video games, publishing, the visual arts and the performing arts, and all these areas. If we can get our young people involved in these areas, then our economy would be, the structure of our economic base would be changed, yeah? And our economy would be producing a lot more, our GDP would rise. And the level of unemployment we see taking place in our country, that would fall. But more than that, our young people will now have a sense of national pride, a sense of achievement. Because when we train them and they develop their talent in these particular areas, they would be able to go and work on their own and produce a good services and earn a decent income and live a much decent life, right? So these 3 broad sectors we would want to focus on. Now, before I close, I know that there is one thing that people in Grenada are concerned about the NDC. Yeah? And that is that when NDC was in power the last time, salaries were paid late. People talk to me about that every day. And they ask me as an economist, if you are in power, would salaries continue to be paid late? I said no. And I want to give people this assurance that with this new administration, with my involvement, salaries would never be paid late. Salaries will be paid on time, if not early. And there's a reason why I say that. Wages and salaries, if you study public finance, wages and salaries have the first claim on government resources. The first claim on government resources. This means that whatever money you collect, whatever money government has, you must first pay your workers. First pay your workers.
Okay.
And therefore, I want to give the people of Grenada the assurance that under this new administration, salaries would not be paid late, salaries would be paid on time, and in fact, consideration is now being given among some of us to having salaries paid twice per week. Twice for the month, every fortnight.
Okay.
As a means of trying to stimulate the economy and generate more economic activity. Because the more money people have in their hand, is the more likely they are to spend, and the more spending is the more sale businesses will get, and the more sales mean there will be more economic activity taking place. So that will be as a means of revitalizing the economy.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Lady Pascal, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to share your final thoughts.
As Lennox said, we're asking for the people to support the NDC. We have the best ideas. We implemented those ideas in 2008, 2013. This is a COVID time. We know we have to be creative, but we're asking everyone to come on board. Lift Grenada up. It's the best country, it's the best island in the Caribbean. And with the NDC at the helm, everybody's life will be improved.
Thank you very much. It's 4 minutes gone past the hour. I know we've gone over by a bit of time, but apologies, of course. I hope GT is going to forgive me. I want to say thank you for my two guests this morning, executive members of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Lennox John Andrews. I've just actually noticed in the J in the middle there, Lennox John Andrew and Maria Pascal. Lady, gentlemen, thank you for the time and certainly wish you all the best as you forge forward with your agenda for the Congress. All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
You take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, all good things must come to an end. This is where we leave it for now. This is where I take my departure from the studio. My stint with you has come to an end, but you know what I said? Parting is such sweet sorrow, but certainly what it does, it sets up the expectation that we're going to meet again, the good Lord's willing, tomorrow. Until then, peace and love. JC loves you. Those of you in television, so long for now. For those of you in radio, I'll be back with you tomorrow first thing in the morning, reminding you that today we focus on our attitude. Our attitude, literally. How we spend our day, a good or a bad day, is literally premised on our attitude towards it. Today we determine we'll adopt a positive mental attitude as we go forward. Peace and love. JC loves you. I'm out of here. All the best to you, Grenada.